The paralyzed female millionaire ignored every handsome suitor, and then she chose the single dad assistant instead. The boardroom smells like old money and new fear. She sits at the head of the table in her wheelchair, surrounded by men who want to decide her future for her. Investors, lawyers, board members who've never looked her in the eye when they speak, and journalists. 3 of them. Cameras ready. Because this isn't a private conversation. This is a spectacle. She's being given a choice that isn't real. Marry the man standing near the projection screen, handsome, powerful, worth $400 million. Or lose the company she built from grief and willpower. The company that saved her life after the accident that took everything else. He's been pursuing her for 8 months. Flowers every week. Public declarations. Calculated charm. She's refused him every single time, not because she's cold, because she knows the difference between a man who wants her and a man who wants to own her. Near the back of the room stands someone nobody's paying attention to. The kind of man people forget as soon as he leaves a room. He's holding a tablet, like he's just there to take notes. But his hands are shaking, because his 11-year-old daughter is waiting for him outside this building, sitting in the lobby with her crutches beside her, doing homework. Trusting him, believing the world is fair. And she's about to watch her father's boss choose between safety and truth. The woman in the wheelchair takes a breath. Her voice is steady when she speaks, but there's something underneath it. Something that sounds like a woman who survived loss before and knows she can survive it again. "I need to tell you all something," she says. The room leans forward. "For months, people have asked me why I won't marry someone like Julian Cross, someone appropriate." She looks at the man at the back of the room, the assistant, the single dad, the one who brings her coffee the way she likes it without being asked, the one who never treats her wheelchair like it's the first thing he sees. "The truth is, I already made my choice. And it's him." If you believe that the measure of a person isn't their title or their bank account, but how they show up when no one's watching, stay with this story. Because what happens next will restore your faith in choosing love over fear. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, what's the bravest choice you've ever made? But to understand how we got here, to understand why a billionaire is about to risk everything for a man the world doesn't see, we need to go back 14 months. To the morning, a single father walked into her office and changed everything without saying a word. The sun rose over Burbank at 6:15, casting long shadows across the Dreamline Studios campus. By 6:30, Isabel Monroe was already at her desk. Her office sat on the top floor of the main building, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the animation bays where artists were just starting to arrive. She liked being here before anyone else. Liked the silence, the stillness, the way the building felt like it belonged to her alone before the day filled it with voices and needs and expectations. She rolled her wheel. 14 years ago, she'd built this place from nothing. 10 years ago, the accident had tried to take everything. She'd survived anyway, built an empire anyway, made films that taught children to believe in happy endings. She no longer believed in herself. Her phone buzzed. 8:30 meeting with legal. 9:15 call with investors. 10 o'clock production review. The day stretched ahead like every other day. Controlled, managed, survivable. The door opened without a knock. Marcus Webb stepped inside carrying a coffee in a ceramic mug, not paper. He set it on her desk. Steam rose from the surface. She could smell cinnamon. "The investor call," he said quietly. "I moved it to tomorrow." She looked up. "Why?" "Chen's flying in from Singapore. He's tired. He'll be hostile." Marcus adjusted his glasses. "Better to give him a night's sleep first." She hadn't thought of that. She should have. Marcus was already moving to the door, tablet in hand, his movements efficient and unhurried. 43 years old, slightly graying hair, a suit that fit well enough but wasn't expensive. He'd worked for her for 14 months, and she still didn't know much about him beyond the fact that he was never late, never flustered, and seemed to understand what she needed before she asked. "Thank you," she said. He nodded and left. She took a sip of coffee. Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. The morning passed in meetings. Legal wanted her to sign off on international distribution contracts. The head of marketing presented campaign mock-ups for their holiday release. An animator pitched a concept that wasn't ready but showed promise. Isabel made decisions, redirected projects. This was what she did, what she was good at, building things, controlling outcomes. At 3:15, Marcus knocked. "Ms. Monroe, there's someone here to see you." A girl stood in the doorway. 11 years old, maybe 12, bright eyes, forearm crutches painted purple with stickers covering the grips. She wore a school uniform and a backpack covered in pins. "This is Lily," Marcus said. "My daughter. Her after-school program was canceled today." "Oh." Isabel blinked. Lily moved into the office carefully, her crutches making soft clicks against the floor. She looked around with open curiosity, taking in the awards on the shelves, the concept art framed on the walls, the scale model of Dreamline's latest film displayed on the credenza. "You made all of these?" Lily asked. "My team did," Isabel said. "I just helped guide them. Dad says you're the best boss he's ever had." Isabel glanced at Marcus. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. He looked embarrassed. "Your dad makes me—" She sat down in one of the guest chairs, setting her crutches against the armrest. Marcus moved to help her, but she waved him off. "I got it, Dad." He stepped back. "Let her handle it herself." Isabel watched the exchange. The way Marcus hovered without crowding, the way Lily moved with practiced independence, the way neither of them treated the crutches like something to apologize for. "Do you need me to stay?" Marcus asked his daughter. "I'm good. I brought homework." He nodded. Turned to Isabel. "I'll be in the outer office if you need anything." And then Lily pulled a book from her backpack and started reading. Isabel returned to her emails, but she found herself glancing up every few minutes. The girl was quiet, focused. She chewed on the end of her pencil when she was thinking, kicked her feet slightly when she got stuck on a problem. After 20 minutes, Lily looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you like your wheelchair?" Isabel froze. No one asked her that. Ever. "I mean," Lily continued, "people always ask me if my crutches hurt or if I wish I didn't need them. But I don't really think about them like that. Like my backpack or my sneakers." Isabel stared at this child who had just said something no adult had managed to say in 10 years. "I don't like it," Isabel said slowly, "but I don't hate it either. It's just how I move now." Lily nodded like that made perfect sense. "Yeah, that's what I tell people too." She went back to her homework. Isabel felt something shift in her chest. Something small but unmistakable. At 4:30, Marcus returned to collect Lily. He helped her gather her things, patient, and the way he waited for her to stand before he moved toward the door. "Thank you for letting her stay," he said. "She's welcome any time." Marcus met her eyes for just a moment. Something passed between them. An understanding. A recognition. Then he was gone, and Isabel was alone again. She turned back to her computer, but her focus was fractured. She kept thinking about the way Marcus moved, the way he spoke, the way he made her office feel less empty without taking up space. At 5:45, Marcus appeared in her doorway one last time. "Reminder," he said. "Your stylist confirmed for 4 o'clock." Isabel's jaw tightened. The 40th birthday gala, the event her board had insisted on, the night Julian Cross would almost certainly make another move. "I remember," she said. Marcus hesitated. Just for a second, like he wanted to say something else. But he didn't. He left, and Isabel sat alone in the fading light, staring at the city below, knowing that Saturday would bring exactly the kind of spectacle she'd spent a decade trying to avoid. Marcus unlocked the front door of their house in Paralyzed. He made a mental note to replace the bulb this weekend. Inside, Lily was already at the kitchen table, backpack open, homework spread across the worn surface. She'd taken the bus home from her after-school program like she did every Tuesday and Thursday, 11 years old and fiercely independent. "How was your day?" Marcus asked. "Good. We dissected a flower in science." He set his briefcase down and moved to the stove. Chicken and rice tonight, simple, fast. He could cook while she worked. Lily chewed on her pencil, frowning at her math worksheet. Her forearm crutches leaned against the wall beside her chair. She didn't need them at the table. "Dad? Yeah? Is Mom ever coming back?" Marcus's hand stilled on the pot. He'd known this question would come again. It always did. "Every few months, like clockwork?" Lily asked. Every time, it hurt exactly the same. "No, sweetheart," he said quietly. "She's not." "Why?" "Some people aren't ready to be parents. It's not your fault." "It was never your fault." Lily nodded. She'd heard this before. The way her grip on the pencil changed. He turned the heat down on the stove and sat across from her. "You know what I think?" She looked up. "I think we're doing pretty good, just the two of us." A small smile. "Yeah, we are." Dinner took 20 minutes to finish. They ate together at the same table, Lily talking about her science teacher and the book she was reading. Marcus listened, asked questions. This was the part of the day he looked forward to most. After dishes, Lily retreated to her room to read. Marcus sat down at his laptop at the corner desk in the living room. His 3D modeling for architectural firms, restoration projects. It paid enough to cover what his assistant's salary at Dreamline didn't. He opened the first file. A historical building in downtown Los Angeles that needed digital reconstruction. The work was technical, precise. It required skills most people didn't have. Skills he'd spent 20 years perfecting. Marcus Emilio Webb. That's who he used to be. Before he became just Marcus. Before he erased himself. 3 Oscars by the time he was 35. Directors called him a genius. He'd had everything. And then Lily was born. The diagnosis came at 18 months. Cerebral palsy. Mild, but permanent. She'd need crutches. Maybe a walker. Physical therapy for years. His wife Elena looked at him the day after the diagnosis and said 5 words he'd never forget. "I didn't sign up for this." She was gone within a week. Divorce papers filed. Custody surrendered. She'd wanted the glamorous life of being married to Marcus Emilio Webb, the celebrated animator. She didn't want to be the mother of a disabled. Marcus had stood in their house, the expensive one in the Hollywood Hills, the one with the view and the pool and the home theater, and made a choice. Lily needed a father who was present, not famous, not traveling to festivals and award shows, not working 18-hour days in a studio. He walked away from it all, gave up the contracts, let his agent go, stopped returning calls. He moved to Pasadena, bought this small house with what was left after the divorce, and became invisible. Marcus Webb, executive. He hadn't opened that unit in 6 years. At Dreamline, no one knew who he was. He'd changed enough. Graying hair, glasses, a quiet demeanor that made people look past him. He was just the assistant. Competent, reliable, forgettable. It was exactly what he wanted. Dad? Marcus looked up. Lily stood in the doorway of her room wearing her pajamas. Ms. Monroe's party is Saturday, right? Yeah. Can I come? Please? I want to see her house. Everyone says it's like a castle. Marcus hesitated. But Lily's eyes were bright with hope. She asked for so little. Okay, he said. We can go. She grinned. Really? Really? Thank you. She ran to him and hugged him tight. Then she was gone, back to her room, already talking about what dress she wanted to wear. Marcus closed his laptop, stood, walked to his bedroom. His closet door opened with a faint creak. Most of his clothes were simple. Work shirts, slacks, a few weekend outfits. But in the back, covered in plastic, hung a tucked-in years. He pulled it out. He hadn't gained or lost much weight. Saturday night. Isabel's 40th birthday gala. 300 guests from the entertainment industry, cameras, reporters. Julian Cross, who'd been pursuing Isabel for months and would almost certainly make another play for her attention. Marcus knew he should stay away. Knew the smart thing was to keep his head down, stay invisible, protect the life he'd built for Lily. But Isabel had looked at him differently today. Like she saw something. Like she was asking questions he wasn't sure he wanted to answer. He hung the tuxedo on the back of his bedroom door and stared at it for a long moment before turning off the light. The estate sat on 3 acres overlooking the Pacific, all glass and white stone and terraces that caught the sunset. Isabel had bought it 4 years ago and never felt at home in it. Tonight, it belonged to 300 strangers in evening wear who drank champagne and pretended they cared about her birthday. Marcus stood near the service entrance, watching. His tuxedo fit perfectly because it had been tailored 12 years ago when he'd worn it to the Oscars. Lily sat beside him on a cushioned bench, her purple dress catching the light from the string lights overhead. She'd been quiet since they arrived, taking everything in with wide eyes. It really does look like a castle, she whispered. Close enough, Marcus said. Across the room, Isabel sat near the main terrace in her wheelchair, surrounded by board members and investors. She wore a black dress that made her look untouchable. Her hair was pulled back. Her expression was composed. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd built an empire and had no intention of letting anyone take it from her. Julian Cross worked the room like a politician. Tall, handsome, expensively dressed, he moved from group to group, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, making everyone feel like they were the most important person there. Marcus had watched him do this at Dreamline events before. Julian was good at performing. Dinner was served at 8. Marcus helped Lily with her plate, keeping to the edges of the event. This was his job tonight. Make sure Isabel's evening ran smoothly. At 9, Isabel took the small stage that had been set up on the main terrace. The crowd quieted. Cameras turned toward her. She began her speech, thanking everyone for coming, talking about Dreamline's upcoming projects, mentioning the film they'd release in December. She was 3 minutes in when the music started. Not the background jazz that had been playing all night. Something orchestrated. A waltz. Dancers appeared from the sides of the terrace, professional, choreographed. They moved in formation, elegant and precise, and the crowd began to murmur in surprise and delight. Marcus's chest tightened. This wasn't on the schedule. The dancers parted. Julian Cross stepped through them, moving toward the stage with a smile that looked confident but felt predatory. He wore a white tuxedo jacket. In his hand was a small box. Isabel's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw her fingers grip the armrest of her wheelchair. Julian took the microphone from her hand. Smooth. I hope you'll forgive the interruption, but I couldn't let this night pass without doing something I should have done months ago. The crowd was already applauding. Someone whistled. Julian knelt in front of Isabel's wheelchair, opened the box. A ring caught the light, massive and expensive. "Isabel Monroe," he said. "You're the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. Strong, brilliant, beautiful. I've spent 8 months trying to convince you that we belong together. Tonight, in front of everyone who matters, I'm asking you to marry me." People were already standing, champagne glasses raised. Isabel stared at him. Her jaw was tight, her breathing shallow. She didn't reach for the ring. "Julian," she said quietly, too quietly for the microphone to catch. "Say yes, Isabel," he said, louder now, playing to the crowd. "Let's build something amazing together." "No." The word cut through the noise like a blade. Clear. Final. The applause faltered. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Julian's smile didn't move, but something shifted behind his eyes. He stood slowly, smooth. He turned to the crowd, laughing like this was part of the act. "She's making me work for it, folks. That's the woman I fell in love with." But Isabel wasn't laughing. She took the microphone back from his hand. "This isn't a negotiation, Julian. The answer is no. It's been no. It will continue to be no. It will continue to be no." The terrace went silent. Julian's smile hardened into something uglier. He smoothed his jacket, adjusted his cufflinks. When he spoke again, his voice was different, sharper. He gestured vaguely toward the back of the crowd. "The charity case single dad you hired out of pity. Isabel, wake up. Men like me are your last chance at having anything close to normal, unless you actually think he's an option." Laughter broke out. Polite. Scattered. The kind that comes when people don't know what else to do. Marcus felt the words land like a fist to his chest. He didn't move. Couldn't. Lily's hand found his and squeezed. "Dad," she whispered. "Why is that man being mean? Doesn't he know the hurt?" She didn't understand why someone would say those things, why a room full of adults would laugh. Across the terrace, Isabel's face had gone pale. She stared at Julian like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. "Get off my property," she said. Julian blinked. "What? You heard me. Leave." "Isabel, I'm trying to help you. You're trying to humiliate me into submission. It won't work." Her voice was ice. "Get out. Now." Julian's mask cracked completely. His smile disappeared. "You're making a mistake. The only mistake—" He stood there for another moment, surrounded by 300 people who were now watching him instead of her. Then he turned and walked off the terrace, his white jacket disappearing into the house. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Guests looked at each other. Cameras lowered. Someone coughed. Isabel's hands were shaking on her armrests, but her voice stayed steady. "Thank you all for coming tonight. Please enjoy the rest of the evening." She rolled her wheelchair off the stage and disappeared into the house. The crowd began to scatter. Waiters circulated with more champagne. People pretended nothing had happened. Marcus stood frozen near the service entrance, Lily's hand still in his. He could feel eyes on him now. People who'd heard Julian's words were looking, whispering. Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Can we go home, Dad?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "We can go." But before he could move, he looked across the terrace. Through the glass doors of the house, he could see Isabel, alone in her office, her head in her hands. Their eyes met through the glass. Just for a second. And in that second, something passed between them that neither of them could name, but both of them felt. Marcus arrived at Dreamline at 6:30 the next morning, like always. The building was quiet. Most of the staff wouldn't arrive for another hour. Isabel's office door was already open. She sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen. She hadn't changed clothes from the night before. Her hair was still pulled back. Her makeup was smudged at the edges. She'd been there all night. "Marcus," she said without looking up, "close the door." He did. He sat in one of the chairs across from her desk. His hands rested on his knees. He waited. Isabel finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, tired, angry. "Who are you, really?" she asked. "I don't understand. Not your resume. Not the man who brings me coffee and manages my calendar. Who are you?" Marcus's chest tightened. He'd known this question would come eventually. Just not now. Not like this. "I'm your assistant," he said quietly. "No." Isabel's voice was sharp. "You're not." She rolled her wheelchair closer to the desk, leaned forward. "Last night, Julian humiliated you in front of 300 people. You didn't flinch, didn't defend yourself, just stood there like you'd heard worse before." Marcus said nothing. "So I'm asking you again. Who are you?" He could lie. Keep the mask on. Walk away and find another job in another city where no one knew his name. But Lily's voice echoed in his head. "Dad, why is that man being mean? Doesn't he know you're the best person here?" Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket, opened his photos, scrolled back 6 years to a folder he hadn't touched in months. He handed the phone to Isabel. She looked at the screen. Her expression didn't change at first. Then her eyes widened. The photo showed a man in a tuxedo on a stage holding a gold statuette. Younger, clean-shaven, smiling like he owned the world. "Marcus Emilio Webb," she whispered. "Yeah, you won an Oscar. 3 of them." She scrolled through the folder. More photos, award shows, film premieres, studio tours, articles from Variety and The Hollywood Reporter with headlines about the revolutionary animator who changed. "You worked at Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney." "I did. You created the motion capture system half the industry still uses." "Yeah." Isabel looked up at him. "Why are you my assistant?" Marcus took a breath. 6 years ago, my wife left me. The day after Lily was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. She told me she didn't sign up for a broken child. The words still hurt to say. Always would. "I had a choice," he continued. "Keep working 80-hour weeks, traveling to festivals, chasing awards, or be the father Lily needed. I chose Lily. So you stopped answering calls. Let my contracts expire. Became invisible." He met Isabel's eyes. Lily needed a dad who was there. Not famous. Just there. Isabel handed the phone back. Her hands were shaking. "I've seen your work 100 times," she said. "I built Dreamline on the foundation you helped create, and I didn't recognize you. That was the point. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I don't want to be that person anymore. Marcus Emilio Webb doesn't exist. I'm just Marcus now." Lily. The morning light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across her desk. "Julian knew," she said finally. "Somehow he knew. Maybe. Or he just saw an easy target. He made you sound pathetic. Charity case. Pity hire." Her voice cracked slightly. "I should have defended you. You were ambushed. That's not an excuse." She turned her wheelchair to face the window. I froze. "I let him humiliate you in front of everyone who matters, and I said nothing." Marcus stood, moved closer. Not too close. Just close. Isabel didn't turn around. "I need to tell you something." He waited. "I've been attracted to you for months," she said. "The way you move through my office, like you belong here. The way you never treat my wheelchair like it's the first thing you see. The way you talk to Lily." She paused. "Your presence is the only thing that makes this building feel less like a prison." Marcus's breath caught. "But I'm terrified," Isabel continued. 10 years ago, I lost my husband and our baby in one night. The grief almost killed me. If I let someone in again, if I let myself feel something real, and then I lose them." She trailed off. I don't think I'd survive it twice. Marcus moved to stand beside her wheelchair, not in front of her, beside her. I'm not going anywhere, he said. You don't know that. I do. I walked away from everything once, for Lily. I walked away from everything once, for Lily. I'm not running again. Isabel finally looked at him. Her eyes were wet. This is impossible, she whispered. You know that, right? You're my assistant. The optics alone. I know. He already started. They sat in silence. The city woke up outside the windows. Cars moved along the streets below. The sun climbed higher. Marcus's phone buzzed. A notification. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. What? Isabel asked. He showed her. Variety had published a story at 6:45 that morning. The headline read, Dreamline CEO Isabel Monroe's judgment questioned after public rejection of producer Julian Cross. The article was carefully worded. Professional. But the implications were clear. Questions about whether a woman in her position could separate personal feelings from business decisions. Isabel read it twice. Her fingers gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Richard Ashford, board chair. Don't answer it, Isabel said. He'll call you next. Let him. Marcus declined the call. 10 seconds later, Isabel's desk phone rang. She picked it up. Richard. Marcus couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he watched Isabel's expression harden with every passing second. I understand your concerns, she said, her voice ice. No, I won't be issuing a statement, because there's nothing to address. Julian orchestrated a publicity stunt. I refused him. That's the end of it. Pause. My personal life is not the board's business. Longer pause, her knuckles went white. I'll see you at the next board meeting, Richard. Goodbye. She hung up, turned to Marcus. He's going to come for both of us now, she said quietly. Julian doesn't lose gracefully, and he has the resources to make this very ugly, very fast. 2 weeks after the gala, Dreamline's Julian Cross offered me double, he said. I'm sorry. 2 days later, the head of visual effects did the same. Then the senior lighting artist, Isabel, sat at her desk and watched her team disappear, one resignation letter at a time. Julian wasn't just retaliating. He was dismantling her company piece by piece. The trade publications ran new stories every few days. Deadline questioned whether Dreamline could meet its release. Deadline could meet its release. Deadline ... Bloomberg mentioned the stock price dip twice in 1 week. None of the stories mentioned Julian by name. They didn't have to. The board called twice. Isabel didn't answer. Marcus found her in her office late on a Thursday night, staring at the empty desks visible through her window. 3 workstations that used to be occupied were dark. You should go home, he said quietly. I built this place, Isabel said, 10 years, and he's taking it apart in 2 weeks. He's trying. He's succeeding. Marcus sat in the chair across from her desk. What do you need? I need the board to trust me. I need Julian to stop. She turned to look at him. None of that is going to happen. Then we adapt. How? Marcus pulled out his tablet, opened a file. The project that lost its lead animator. I looked at it. The character movement is stiff because the rig is outdated. I can rebuild it in 3 days. You're my assistant. I'm also someone who knows how to build character rigs. Isabel stared at him. You haven't done that work in 6 years. Some things you don't forget. She wanted to sing. Wanted to keep the boundaries clear, keep Marcus in the role that made sense on paper. But Dreamline was bleeding, and she didn't have the luxury of pretending anymore. Okay, she said, do it. 12 people around a conference table arguing about a scene that wasn't working. The protagonist's emotional arc felt flat. No one could figure. The problem is his eyes, Marcus said. He's looking at her face. He should be looking at her hands. That's where his focus is. That's where the audience will feel the connection. The lead animator leaned forward, studied the sketch. Yeah, that works. Another animator squinted at the drawing. Who did that? Marcus closed the tablet. Just a suggestion. But word spread. By lunch, people were talking about the assistant who'd solved the problem the entire team had been stuck on for a week. By the end of the day, 2 more animators had quietly asked Marcus for input on scenes they couldn't crack. He helped them, briefly, efficiently, never taking credit, never drawing attention. Sarah Chen watched from her desk. She was 58, gray-haired, calm. She'd worked at Pixar 15 years ago. She recognized something in the way Marcus moved his hands, the way he thought about character performance. She didn't say anything. Not yet. Dreamline's stock dropped another 3 points. An investor called the board chair and demanded answers. The board chair called Isabel and told her they needed to meet. Soon. Isabel pushed back. Bought time. Focused on keeping the projects moving forward. And Marcus kept showing up. Kept solving problems. Kept being the person no one noticed until the work got better. On Friday afternoon, Lily came to the office after school. Her after-school program was closed for teacher training. She sat at the small table in Isabel's office, doing homework while Isabel worked through emails. After 20 minutes, Lily looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Isabel's fingers stopped on the keyboard. Lily tilted her head, curious. "Like, does the wheelchair itself make you sad? Or is it the way people look at it that makes you sad?" Isabel turned her chair to face the girl. "What do you mean?" "People look at my crutches sometimes and they get this face, like they feel bad for me. But my crutches don't make me sad. They help me walk. So I don't really care about them." Lily tapped her pencil against her notebook. "But the face people make? That's annoying." Isabel didn't know what. If the chair is just how you move, and the sad part is everyone acting weird about it. The question hung in the air between them. Simple, direct, more honest than any conversation Isabel had had in years. "I don't know," Isabel said finally. "That's okay. I didn't know either until I thought about it." Lily went back to her homework like the conversation was over. Like she hadn't just asked something that rewrote Isabel's entire understanding of the past 10 years. Marcus returned 20 minutes later to pick Lily up. He helped her pack her backpack, patient and unhurried. Isabel watched them leave together, Lily's crutches clicking softly against the floor, Marcus's hand on her shoulder. The office felt emptier when they were gone. That night, alone in her house in Malibu, Isabel thought about Lily's question. She thought about the accident, the hospital, the months of physical therapy, the decision to build Dreamline because she needed something to survive for. She'd spent 10 years performing strength, proving she didn't need help, refusing pity, building walls so high no one could see the woman under. And Marcus had walked into her office 14 months ago and treated her like none of that mattered. Like the wheelchair was furniture. Like she was just Isabel. She'd been angry at him for it at first, then confused. Then something else she didn't have a name for. Her phone rang. The board chair. She let it go to voicemail. The message was brief. The board wanted an emergency meeting. Monday morning. Mandatory attendance. They had concerns about leadership. Isabel deleted the voicemail, stared at the ocean through her windows, thought about Julian and his patient dismantling, thought about the team members who'd left, thought about the ones who were still there, working harder to fill the gaps. Thought about Marcus, who kept showing up every morning with coffee and solutions and a steadiness that made her believe maybe she didn't have to do this alone. Monday was 3 days away. The board would have questions she didn't want to answer. Julian would keep escalating. The pressure would keep building. But for tonight, she let herself think about a girl with purple crutches who'd asked the one question that mattered. Not whether the wheelchair made her sad, but whether she'd let other people's pity define her. Isabel rolled to her bedroom, transferred to her bed, lay in the dark, and felt something shift inside her chest. Something that felt like the beginning of an answer. 3 days before the emergency board meeting, Dreamline's flagship film screened for its final test audience. The Lightkeeper had been 3 years in production. $200 million. The studio's entire holiday release strategy built around it. Isabel sat in the back of the screening room with Marcus beside her, watching 200 people, families, children, industry professionals, react to the story her team had poured everything into creating. The first 2 acts played beautifully. Laughter in the right places. Gasps at the emotional beats. Children leaning forward in their seats, captivated. Then the third act began. Isabel felt the shift immediately. The energy in the room changed. Parents glanced at each other. A child in the front row started crying. A father and daughter reuniting after loss, finding hope in each other. But something was wrong with the emotional math. The reconciliation felt hollow. The hope felt forced. The resolution didn't earn its payoff. When the lights came up, the room was silent. Parents were comforting their children. Industry professionals were checking their phones, already typing notes. The head of production found Isabel outside the screening room. His face was pale. "We have 8 weeks until release," he said quietly, "and I don't know how to fix this." Neither did Isabel. The board called an emergency meeting that night. Conference call. 11 voices talking over each other, panic barely contained beneath corporate language. "The film doesn't work. We can't release it like this. We need to delay." "We can't delay. The marketing campaign is already running. Distribution contracts are signed. Then we need a solution now." Isabel listened to them argue for 40 minutes. No one had answers. Just fear, disguised as strategy. She ended the call at 10:30 and sat. Somewhere out there, Julian Cross was waiting for exactly this moment. Her phone rang at 11:15. Richard Ashford, the board chair. "Isabel," he said, "we have a situation." "I know." "Julian Cross called me an hour ago. He's offering to acquire Dreamline, 40 cents on the dollar. He says he has resources to fix the film, distribution connections, marketing reach." Isabel's jaw tightened. "That's generous of him. There's a condition." Of course there was. He wants the acquisition to include a part, creating a unified leadership structure. He wants me to marry him. Yes. Isabel closed her eyes. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it wasn't so calculated. Julian was offering to save her company in exchange for her surrender. Not just professional, personal. "The board is meeting tomorrow morning," Richard continued. "We're giving you 72 hours to present an alternative solution. If you can't fix the film or find another path forward, we'll have to seriously consider Julian's offer." "You mean you'll force me to accept it?" "I mean, the board has a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders." The call ended. Isabel sat in the dark, staring at nothing. 10 years of building Dreamline, 10 years of proving she could survive loss and create something meaningful anyway. And Julian was going to take it all because a film's third act didn't work. She didn't hear Marcus enter, didn't realize he was there until he spoke. "You're still here." She turned. He stood in her doorway, jacket over his arm, car keys in his hand. It was past midnight. Closed the door behind him. Sat in the chair across from her desk like he had 1,000 times before, but this time felt different. "What happened?" he asked. Isabel told him everything. The test screening, the board call, Julian's offer, the 72-hour deadline, the condition that came with saving her company. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to do?" he asked finally. "I don't know." "That's not what I asked." He leaned forward slightly. No. Isabel looked at him. At this man who'd been standing 3 feet away from her for 14 months, who she'd only recently started seeing clearly, who made her coffee the way she liked it and never treated her wheelchair like something to pity, who had walked away from everything once to protect his daughter and would probably do it again without hesitation. "I want to fix the film," she said quietly. "And?" Her breath caught. "And I want you." The words hung in the air between them. Simple, true, impossible. Marcus didn't smile or reach for her hand or make promises they both knew were complicated. He just held her gaze. "I can fix the film," he said. "Marcus, I know what's wrong with it. I watched the screening. The emotional arc in the third act is broken because the father's motivation isn't clear. The reconciliation feels hollow because we haven't seen him earn it." He spoke with quiet certainty. "I can rebuild it. I know exactly how. You haven't done that work in 6 years. Some things you don't forget. It would take weeks. We have 72 hours. Then I work for 72 hours. Isabel stared at him. "If you do this, people will see. They'll know you're not just my assistant. Sarah already suspects. The team will figure it out." "I know. You'll have to step out of the shadows." "I know. Julian will use it against both of us." Marcus met her eyes. "Are you willing to stand with me when that happens?" The question settled over her like a weight. Not whether she'd let him help, whether she'd choose him publicly when the cost became real. Isabel thought about Lily's question. "Does your wheelchair make you sad, or do people's faces?" She thought about 10 years of building walls to protect herself from grief. Thought about Marcus, who'd spent 6 years hiding to protect his daughter. 2 people who'd learned to survive by staying small. And she thought about Julian's offer. Safety in exchange for surrender. Survival in exchange for her soul. "Yes," she said, "I'm willing." Marcus stood. "Then let's get to work." Marcus pulled up the film's source files while Isabel called the senior animation team at home. "I need you here," she said. "Now, all of you." 14 people arrived within an hour. Tired, confused, ready. Marcus stood at the front of the room and explained what was broken, not with corporate language or hedged opinions, with precision. The father's motivation in Act 3 isn't clear. We see him trying to reconcile with his daughter, but we haven't seen him earn it. The audience doesn't believe he's changed because we haven't shown the internal shift. We need to rebuild the sequence. Show the moment he chooses her over his pride. Make it cost him something. An animator in the back row raised her hand. "That's a complete redesign. We have 72 hours. "I know. It's impossible." Marcus met her eyes. "Then we do the impossible." He worked through the night. The team watched him redesign character arcs with a speed and confidence that didn't match his job title. He rebuilt emotional beats they'd struggled with for months in minutes. He taught them techniques most animators had never seen. Micro-expressions that conveyed internal states, timing adjustments that made dialogue land with devastating impact. By sunrise, they had a new framework. By noon, the first sequences were rendering. Marcus didn't eat, didn't sleep, just moved from workstation to workstation, adjusting, refining, teaching. His hands moved with muscle memory older than his years at Dreamline, knowledge that came from somewhere deeper than a reference manual. Sarah Chen sat at her desk and watched him work. She was 58. She'd been at Pixar 15 years ago when a young animator named Marcus Emilio Webb had revolutionized how they thought about character performance. She recognized his work before she recognized his face. On the second day, she stood and walked to where Marcus was adjusting a father's hand gesture. The exact angle of fingers reaching toward a daughter, the precise moment of hesitation before contact. "You're Marcus Emilio Webb, aren't you?" she said quietly. The room went still. Every animator within earshot stopped working. Marcus looked at Sarah for a long moment. Keep the mask on for 3 more hours. Finish the work and disappear again. But Isabel had asked if he was willing to be seen. And he'd said yes. "Yeah," he said. "I am." Sarah nodded slowly. "I worked on your team at Pixar 2014. You taught me how to build emotional truth into mechanical movement." "I remember. Where have you been?" "Here. Raising my daughter. Being someone different." "Why?" Marcus glanced at Isabel, who sat near the back of the room in her wheelchair, watching. "Because some things matter." "Everyone back to work. We have a film to save." No one questioned it. Word spread through the animation bay like wildfire. The assistant was Marcus Emilio Webb, the legend who'd disappeared 6 years ago, and he was here, now, saving their film. But the team closed ranks around him. No one called reporters. No one leaked to trade publications. They just worked. 70 hours in, Marcus was running on adrenaline and muscle memory. His eyes burned. His back ached. But the film was coming together. The father's arc now had weight. Isabel found him at a workstation at 3 in the morning on the third day. The rest of the team had gone home to sleep for a few hours before the final push. "You should rest," she said. "Almost done." "Marcus." He turned to look at her. Her hair was pulled back. Exhaustion showed in the lines around her eyes. She'd been here for 70 hours, too, reviewing every sequence, approving changes, making decisions. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For this. For stepping out. For being willing to be seen." Marcus saved his work. Thought it was protecting Lily. Thought staying small kept her safe. He met Isabel's eyes. "But you can't protect people from the world by making yourself invisible. You just teach them that's how you survive. And I don't want Lily to learn that." Isabel's fingers tightened on her wheelchair armrests. "I want her to see that you can be extraordinary and humble at the same time," Marcus continued. "That you can choose love over fear. That the people who see you, really see you, are worth the risk." The animation bay was quiet except for the hum of computers. "We're going to have to tell the board," Isabel said. "I know. Julian's going to use this. He'll say I hired you under false pretenses, that we've been lying to everyone." "Probably. Are you ready for that?" Marcus thought about Lily. About the storage unit where his Oscars collected dust. About 6 years of being invisible and the cost of that safety. "Yeah," he said, "I'm ready." They screened the revised cut at noon on the third day for Isabel's senior staff. 12 executives crammed into a small theater. Lights went down. The film played. Marcus sat in the back row, watching faces instead of the screen. Isabel sat beside him, her hand resting on the armrest between them. The father's arc unfolded. The moment of choice, giving up his pride, his need to be right, choosing his daughter over his ego. The reconciliation that followed felt earned now, real. When the daughter reached for her father's hand and he took it, the gesture carried weight. The lights came up. Silence. Then Isabel's head of production started crying. Not quiet tears. Oh, then the whole room was on their feet, applauding, some of them crying, all of them understanding that what they'd just watched was something extraordinary. "It works," the head of production said, wiping her eyes. "It actually works." "Better than works," someone else said. "It's transcendent." Isabel looked at Marcus. He saw relief in her eyes. And something else. Pride. Not in the film. In him. "I'm calling Richard," Isabel said. "I'm scheduling the board meeting for tomorrow morning." The room emptied slowly. People congratulated Marcus as they left, some of them calling him by his real name, some still calling him Marcus Webb, like they'd always known both were true. When they were alone, Isabel rolled her wheelchair closer. "However this goes tomorrow," she said, "thank you. For saving my company. For being honest about who you are. For choosing to be seen." "We're choosing to be seen. We're choosing together," Marcus said. "Yeah, we are." They sat in the empty theater, exhausted, running on fumes, knowing that tomorrow would bring confrontation and consequences, and Julia. But tonight, they had a film that worked, and each other. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Dad, when are you coming home?" He replied, "Soon, sweetheart. Tomorrow's a big day." Another buzz. "Is Ms. Monroe okay?" Marcus glanced at Isabel, smiled slightly. "Yeah, she's okay." Outside, dawn was breaking over Burbank. Through the theater windows, Marcus could see the studio lot coming to life. Cars pulling into parking spaces, lights turning on in offices. And somewhere in Los Angeles, he had no idea what was waiting for him. The boardroom was already full when Isabel arrived at 9. 12 board members sat around the polished mahogany table. Investors lined the walls. Lawyers with briefcases positioned themselves near the door. And journalists. 3 of them, cameras ready, stood in the back corner, invited by Julian to witness what he'd framed as a historic partnership announcement. Marcus stood near the back wall, hands at his sides, watching. No one looked at him twice. He was furniture. Background. The assistant who'd probably brought coffee. Julian Cross sat at the opposite end of the table from Isabel, relaxed in an expensive suit that caught the morning light. He looked like a man who'd already won. Richard Ashford, the board chair, called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss Julian Cross's acquisition proposal and Isabel's response. Julian, would you like to present?" "Julian, would you like to present?" Julian stood, smiled, commanded the room without effort. "Thank you, Richard. I'll keep this brief." He clicked a remote. A presentation appeared on the screen behind him. Investors losing confidence. Key talent departing. My offer addresses all of these issues. He walked through the terms. Acquire Dreamline at 40 cents on the dollar. Inject capital to rescue the film. Provide distribution leverage through his production company. Create a unified leadership structure that would stabilize investor confidence. The word marriage never appeared on screen, but everyone in the room understood it was part of the package. This partnership would position Dreamline for long-term. It would demonstrate strong, stable leadership. He turned to Isabel. "All it requires is a decision." He sat down. The room waited. Richard looked at Isabel. "Do you have a response?" Isabel's hands rested on her wheelchair armrests. She'd been awake for 74 hours. Her eyes were tired but clear. "I do," she said. She didn't stand. Didn't need to. "I'm rejecting the acquisition," she said. "All of it. The buyout. The partnership. The marriage condition that wasn't mentioned but everyone here knows is part of the deal." "I'm also rejecting Julian's proposal," Isabel continued. "Not just professionally. Personally, for the 8th time. And for the last time. Isabel, Richard said carefully, the board has concerns about— I know what the board's concerns are. You've made them clear. She turned to address the full room. You are worried about the film, about investor confidence, about whether I can lead this company through a crisis. Can you? One of the investors asked. Yes, because I'm not doing it alone. She turned in her wheelchair to face the back of the room, found Marcus standing. For 8 months, people have asked me why I keep refusing Julian Cross, why I won't choose someone powerful, successful, appropriate. Her voice was steady. The answer is simple. I already chose someone. The room shifted. Confusion rippled through the board members. Isabel kept her eyes on Marcus. That man standing in the back. My assistant. The single father everyone here has overlooked for over a year. That's the person I choose. Marcus's breath caught. Not Julian? Isabel said. Not any of the men? The room exploded. Board members started talking at once. Journalists raised their cameras. Investors leaned forward in their seats. Julian's face drained of color. He stood slowly. Isabel, this is— I'm not finished, she said. The room went quiet again. I understand how this looks, Isabel continued. I understand the concerns about judgment and inappropriate relationships and leadership stability. So let me be clear about who Marcus Webb actually is. She nodded to Marcus. He didn't move. Marcus didn't just help me run. She turned to the board. 3 days ago, when our flagship film was failing and no one could identify why, Marcus rebuilt the entire third act. He worked 72 hours straight, and he fixed it. Sarah Chen, the older animator who sat on the board, was staring at Marcus. Her expression had changed. Recognition dawning. Wait, Sarah said quietly. She stood, walked closer to where Marcus stood. You're Marcus Emilio Webb, aren't you? The room went still. Marcus met her eyes. Yeah, I am. Marcus Emilio Webb is one of the greatest animators of the last 20 years. He revolutionized motion capture, won 3 Academy Awards. Then he disappeared 6 years ago, and the entire industry spent years wondering where he went. She looked at Marcus. You've been here the whole time. Yeah. One of the investors pulled out his phone, started typing. 10 seconds later, his eyes widened. He's right. Marcus Emilio Webb. Oscars in 2012, 2015, and 2017. Lead animator on. He scrolled. She turned it around. Marcus's IMDb page filled the screen. Photos from award shows. Credits that read like a history of modern animation. The room erupted again. Questions fired from every direction. You hired him as your assistant? How long have you known? Why didn't you tell us? Isabel raised her hand. Silence returned. I didn't know until 2 weeks ago, she said. Marcus spent 6 years hiding his identity. He had his reasons. But 3 days ago, when we needed someone who could save our film, he stepped forward. She pulled out a remote. The screen behind Julian changed. Now it showed the revised film's final scene. A father and daughter reconciling after loss, rendered with emotional precision that made the room go quiet. This is what Marcus built in 72 hours, Isabel said. Not alone. With our team. But he let it. He taught them techniques they didn't know existed. He rebuilt the emotional architecture that was broken. The scene played. A father reaching for his daughter's hand. The exact angle of hesitation before contact. The daughter's eyes, hope and fear and love, all visible in micro-expressions that felt achingly real. When the clip ended, no one spoke. We screened the full revised cut yesterday for senior staff, Isabel said. It works. It's not just fixed, it's transcendent. We're releasing it on schedule. In 8 weeks, that film will be in theaters, and it will be everything we promised investors it would be. She turned to Julian. So I don't need your rescue. I don't need your capital or your distribution network or your partnership. I have everything I need right here. Julian, his hands gripped the edge of the table. This is insane, he said. You're telling this board that you rejected my offer because you're in love with your assistant, who's been lying about his identity for over a year. I'm telling this board that I'm restructuring Dreamline with the best creative talent in the animation industry. And yes, I'm in love with him. Both things are true. The optics alone. The optics are that Dreamline just landed Marcus Emilio Webb as our chief creative officer. When that news breaks, our stock price won't drop. It'll soar. She turned back to the... I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of my decision. Marcus will lead all creative development going forward. We have 3 films in production that will benefit from his expertise. We have a flagship release that will exceed every expectation. And we have a future that doesn't involve selling ourselves for 40 cents on the dollar to a man who tried to destroy us when I refused to marry him. The room was silent. Richard Ashford looked at the other board members, then at Marcus, then at Isabel. You're certain the film works? He asked. Screen it yourselves. Right now. I have it loaded and ready. Richard nodded slowly. Then I think we should see it. The lights dimmed. The screen at the front of the boardroom came to life. The lightkeeper began to play. No one spoke. 12 board members sat motionless. Investors stood against the walls. Journalists held their cameras still. Even Julian, who'd been preparing another objection, went quiet. The film opened with a father and daughter separated by circumstance. The first 2 acts played exactly as they had in the failed test screening. Beautiful animation, strong voice work, clear, emotional... Then the 3rd act began. The revised 3rd act, Marcus's work. The difference was immediate. The father's journey toward reconciliation now had weight. His internal struggle played out in micro-expressions. The way his eyes tracked his daughter across a room, the hesitation before he reached out, the exact angle of his shoulders when he chose humility over pride. Every gesture carried meaning. The reconciliation scene unfolded with devastating precision. The daughter, hurt and guarded, sat on a bench in fading sunlight. The father approached. Then he did something simple. He reached for her hand. The moment before their hands touched lasted 3 seconds. 3 seconds of animation that showed a man choosing his child over his ego, a daughter deciding whether to trust again, and the fragile hope that maybe broken things could be repaired. When their fingers met, half the room started crying. The scene continued. The father spoke. Not a grand speech, just quiet words rendered with perfect lip sync and emotional authenticity. The daughter responded. They didn't solve everything, but... And the film's final image. The 2 of them walking toward sunset, the father's hand on his daughter's shoulder, felt earned in a way the original ending never had. The screen went dark. The lights came up slowly. Richard Ashford, the board chair, was wiping his eyes. Sarah Chen's face was wet with tears. One of the investors was openly sobbing. No one spoke for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. Another person joined. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Isabel waited for the noise to die down. She turned her wheelchair to face the full board. I'm restructuring this company effective immediately. Marcus Webb will serve as Chief Creative Officer. He'll oversee all creative development. He'll lead our animation teams. He'll shape the films we make for the next decade. Isabel, Richard said carefully, the optics. The optics are that we just secured the greatest creative mind in modern animation. When this news breaks, every trade publication in Hollywood will be calling us for comment. Every animator who's ever worked with Marcus will want to come back. Our stock price, it'll climb. She looked around the room. I'm not asking for approval, I'm informing you of my decision. But if the board wants to vote, let's vote now. Richard glanced at the other board members. All in favor of appointing Marcus Webb as Chief Creative Officer? Hands went up, one by one. Sarah first, then the others. Even the investors who'd been skeptical raised their hands. Unanimous, Richard said quietly. Julian, who'd been silent since the film started, stood. His face was pale. She hired him under false pretenses. He lied about his identity for over a year. And now you're just... Julian, Richard interrupted. Sit down. No. I have a legitimate concern about corporate fraud and... Sit down. Julian sat, but his hands gripped the table edge. Sarah Chen stood. I'd like to raise something. She pulled out her phone, pulled up an email. 3 weeks ago, I was contacted by Julian's production company. They offered me double my salary to leave Dreamline immediately. I declined, but I kept the email. Another board member spoke up. I received a similar offer. For my lead animator, Julian's company has been systematically trying to poach our entire creative team. A third person nodded. Same here. Richard's expression hardened. Julian, is this true? It's business. Perfectly legal. It's corporate espionage, one of the lawyers said. She was already typing on her tablet. If this can be proven as a coordinated effort to destabilize a competitor while simultaneously offering to acquire them at below market value, there are serious legal implications. Especially if any board members were aware of or facilitated these offers. The room went very quiet. One of the board members, an older man who'd been vocally supportive of Julian's acquisition, cleared his throat. I may have mentioned to Julian that certain team members were unhappy, but I didn't. You'll want to speak with your attorney, the lawyer said. Separately from this meeting. Julian stood again. This is absurd. I came here to help Dreamline, to save Isabel from her own poor judgment. And now you're turning this into some kind of witch hunt because she's infatuated with her assistant? Former assistant, Isabel said quietly. He's my chief creative officer now, and he just saved a $200 million film that you claimed was unsalvageable. One film doesn't. It's not one film. It's every film we make going forward. It's the entire creative future of this company. And you tried to destroy it because I refused to marry you. Julian's face flushed red. You think this is about rejection? I was offering you a partnership. A man who abandoned his career, who's been lying to everyone here, Marcus, who'd been standing silently at the back of the room the entire time, spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried. I didn't abandon my career. I chose my daughter, and I'd make that choice again every single day. The room turned to look at him. You're right that I lied about my identity, Marcus continued. I did. For 6 years. Because being anonymous meant I could be present for Lily. And nothing I've ever made, no film, not aggressively, just steady. You called me a charity case. You said I was nothing. You were wrong. But that's not why I'm here. He stopped beside Isabel's wheelchair. I'm here because Isabel asked me to help save something she built. And I did. Not for recognition. Not for a title. Because it was the right thing to do. Julian stared at him. You really think this is going to work? That you can just step out of the shadows after 6 years and everyone will? They already have, Sarah said. The animation community has been wondering where Marcus went. When word gets out that he's at Dreamline, every major talent in the industry will want to work with him, including the people you just poached. Richard stood. Julian, I think it's time for you to leave. You're making a mistake. Security will escort you out. 2 security guards appeared at the door. They'd been waiting. Julian looked around the room, searching for allies. Found none. He grabbed his briefcase, straightened his jacket. "You'll be hearing from my lawyers, all of you." "I'm sure we will," one of the lawyers said pleasantly. "We'll be ready." Julian turned back to Isabel. "You had a chance at something real," he said. "A real partnership, a real future, and you threw it away for this." Isabel met his eyes. "I chose truth over performance. I chose someone who sees me as whole over someone who sees me as a trophy. I chose well." Julian left. The door closed behind him. The room exhaled collectively. Richard sat back down. "Well, that was dramatic." "It needed to be," Isabel said. "The lawyers will need statements. There will be depositions. This isn't over." "I know. But welcome to Dreamline, Mr. Webb." "Officially." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." The board members started gathering their things. Conversations broke out. Sarah approached Marcus and shook his hand. "It's good to have you back." "Good to be back." Isabel sat at the head of the table, watching it all unfold. Marcus stood beside her wheelchair, and for the first time in 14 months, he wasn't standing behind her or to the side, he was beside her. Equal. The door opened. A small figure appeared. Lily, using her purple crutches, moved into the room. She walked straight to Marcus and wrapped her arms around him. "I knew it," she said. "I knew you were the best person here." Marcus held his daughter. His eyes closed for just a moment. "Thanks, sweetheart." Lily pulled back, looked at Isabel. "Are you okay?" Isabel smiled. Actually smiled. Actually smiled. "Yeah, I am. Good. Because you and Dad look happy, and you should be happy." Out of the mouths of children came truths that adults spent years avoiding. Marcus met Isabel's eyes over Lily's head. Something passed in front of everyone who mattered. And the world hadn't ended. It had just begun. 6 months later, the Academy Awards ceremony filled the Dolby Theater with light and sound, and Hollywood's finest pretending not to care about winning. Marcus sat in the third row with Isabel beside him in her wheelchair, and Lily on his other side. Lily wore a dress she'd designed herself, deep blue with silver threading, and her forearm crutches were covered in silver glitter that caught the stage lights every time she moved. When they announced Best Animated Feature, and the Oscar goes to The Lightkeeper, Dreamline Studios, the room exploded in applause. Marcus stood, helped Lily to her feet. Isabel rolled beside them toward the stage. They climbed the steps together. Marcus and Lily walking, Isabel using the accessible ramp. The three of them stood at the microphone under lights that felt like sunrise. Marcus held the Oscar, his fourth. He looked at the statuette for a moment, then at Lily, then at Isabel. 6 years ago, I walked away from this industry, he said. I thought stepping out of the spotlight was the only way to be the father my daughter needed. I was wrong. You don't protect the people you love by making yourself small. You protect them by showing them what it looks like to be brave. He glanced down at Lily. She smiled up at him. This film exists because someone saw me when I was invisible. Because she chose truth over safety, because she asked me to step forward instead of stay hidden. He turned to Isabel. Thank you. Not as my boss, as my partner. They walked off stage together, Lily between them. A family built from broken pieces that had somehow become whole. The trade publications ran the story for weeks. Marcus Emilio Webb's return. Dreamline's Resurrection, the film that shouldn't have worked but became the highest-grossing animated feature of the year. Julian Cross's name appeared in different articles. His production company had folded in March. The SEC investigation revealed he'd been bribing board members at 3 different studios. His reputation was ash. But that wasn't the... They restructured Dreamline completely. Marcus led creative development. 3 films in production, all of them carrying his fingerprints. Isabel ran the business side. Their offices were connected by a door that stayed open most days. They worked side by side, made decisions together, argued about story beats and release schedules and whether to greenlight a project about a girl who builds robots. And some evenings, after most people had gone home, Marcus would find Isabel at her desk and they'd sit in the quiet, talking about nothing important, about Lily's, about the film they were watching that weekend, about the life they were building that looked nothing like either of them had imagined. In July, they flew to Montreal. The highway looked the same as it had 10 years ago. Rain-slicked pavement, gray sky, trees thick on both sides of the road. Isabel directed Marcus to pull over at a specific spot. There was a small memorial by the roadside flowers that someone kept fresh, a white cross, David Monroe's name carved into the wood. Marcus helped Isabel from the car. Lily followed with her crutches, carrying a bouquet. They stood at the memorial in silence. Isabel stared at David's name, at the date, at the life that had ended here and the one that had somehow continued. Marcus didn't say anything, just stood beside her, present. Lily placed the flowers at the base of the cross, stepped back, took Isabel's hand in hers, and Isabel cried. For the first time in 10 years, she cried at this spot, not quiet tears, deep, gasping sobs that came from somewhere she'd kept sealed since the accident. Marcus's hand found her. They just stood with her while she broke open. When the tears finally slowed, Isabel wiped her face. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Marcus said quietly. "I haven't cried here since." "I know." Lily looked up at the memorial. "Was he nice?" Isabel nodded. "Yeah, he was." "Do you think he'd be happy you found Dad?" The question was so simple, so direct, so accidentally profound. Isabel looked at Marcus, at this man who'd walked into her life as an assistant and become something she didn't have words for. "Yeah," she said, "I think he would." Lily fell asleep in the back seat. Marcus drove. Isabel watched the highway lights blur past her window and felt something she hadn't felt in a decade. Peace. 2 weeks later, they sat in Isabel's Malibu house as the sun set over the Pacific. The house that had felt like a museum for 4 years now felt like a home. Lily was asleep on the couch between Marcus and Isabel, her head on a pillow, her crutches leaning against the coffee table. They were watching an early cut of Dreamline's next film, a story about a father and daughter who learned to film. The film played on the large screen. The animation was rough still, placeholder voices, incomplete lighting, but the emotional core was there. The story worked. Marcus watched the screen, but his attention kept drifting to Lily's peaceful face, to Isabel beside him. "What are you thinking?" Isabel asked quietly. "That 6 months ago I thought this was impossible." "What was?" "This. Us. All of it." Isabel's hand moved across the couch, found his, their fingers intertwined. "Are you happy?" she asked. At this woman who'd spent 10 years building walls and had chosen to tear them down, who'd stood in front of a boardroom full of people and chosen him when the world said she was foolish. "Yeah," he said, "I am." "Good, because I am too." They sat in the fading light. The film played on. Lily slept between them. Outside, waves crashed against the shore in steady rhythm. Marcus thought about the man he'd been 6 years ago, the one who'd walked away from everything to protect his daughter, the one who'd believed that love meant making your... It meant being seen, being known, being brave enough to let someone past the walls you'd built to survive. "Marcus?" He looked at Isabel. "If you could go back," she said. To that day 6 years ago when you decided to disappear, would you change it? He thought about it. About the awards he'd missed, the films he hadn't made, the recognition he'd walked away from. Then he looked at Lily, at Isabel, at the life he'd built from the ruins of the one he'd planned. No, he said, I wouldn't change any of it, because it led here. Isabel, every time, in every version of this story, I'd choose you. Marcus leaned over Lily's sleeping form, kissed Isabel softly. Same. The film played on. The sun set completely. The house fell into comfortable darkness broken only by the screen's glow. And somewhere in Los Angeles, in offices and studios and homes, people were already talking about Dreamline's next projects, about Marcus Emilio Webb's return to animation, about Isabel Monroe's defiance of every expectation. But here, in this house, a man who'd learned that being extraordinary and humble weren't opposites. A woman who'd discovered that strength wasn't the same as isolation. What mattered was the choice they'd made, together, out loud, in front of everyone who'd doubted them, to choose love over fear, truth over performance, each other over everything the world said they should want instead. And that choice, that brave, foolish, beautiful choice, had built something neither of them could have created alone. A family, a future, a home. He just sat there in the darkness with his daughter asleep beside him and Isabel's hand in his, and felt something he'd thought he'd lost the day his wife walked out. Hope, not the abstract kind, the real kind. The kind that came from knowing that broken things could be made whole, that people who'd learned to survive alone could learn to love together, that the best parts of life were often the ones you never planned. We should get her to bed, Isabel whispered. In a minute. Okay, in a minute. They sat in the quiet. The waves kept their rhythm outside. And in that darkness, with the people he loved close enough to touch, Marcus understood something fundamental. This was what he'd been searching for all along, not awards or recognition or proof of his talent. Just this simple, perfect moment, this home.